What do you think, Marge? All I need is a title.
Doctor Who has been a staple of first British and then American television since it first debuted in November of 1963. In my case, I started watching Doctor Who roughly 35 years ago, when I would visit my grandmother and she would have it playing on the television. My first Doctor was this guy. I watched quite a bit of Tom Baker, then a bit of the next couple Doctors in the role of the Time Lord, but after a while I kind of drifted away, coming back only briefly when I watched the Trial of the Time Lord series featuring Colin Baker. I have seen enough to be familiar with both Sylvester McCoy and Paul McGann, both of which I thought deserved better fates as the Doctor than they were given by the BBC. When the 2005 series started, I was hooked immediately. When they very quickly brought back the Daleks, the Ninth Doctor responded in a way that I, and I think only those who remember the older series, might understand. After all, he had been fighting the Daleks since the second episode of the entire series.
I've come to help. I'm the Doctor. Impossible.
The Doctor! Exterminate! Exterminate!
Let me out!
Exterminate!
Sir, it's gonna kill him.
It's talking.
You are an enemy of the Daleks! You must be destroyed!
It's not working. Fantastic! Oh, fantastic! Powerless! Look at you. The great space dustbin. How does it feel?
Back!
What for? What are you going to do to me? If you can't kill, then what are you good for, Dalek? What's the point of you? You're nothing! What the hell are you here for?
I am waiting for orders!
What does that mean?
I am a soldier. I was bred to receive orders.
Well, you're never going to get any. Not ever.
I demand orders.
They're never going to come. Your race is dead. You all burn, all of you. 10 million ships on fire. The entire Dalek race wiped out in 1 second.
You lie.
I watched it happen. I made it happen.
You destroyed us.
I had no choice.
And what of the Time Lords?
Dead. They burnt with you. The end of the last great time war. Everyone lost.
And the coward survived.
Oh, and I caught your little signal. Help me, poor little thing. But there's no one else coming because there's no one else left.
I am alone in the universe.
Yep.
So are you. We are the same.
We're not the same, I'm not... No, wait. Maybe we are. You're right, yeah, okay. You've got a point. Because I know what to do. I know what should happen. I know what you deserve. exterminate.
Why should I? You never did.
So I watched most of the new iterations of Doctor Who, and of course all the classic baddies started coming back, and the stories were generally good and enticing and drew you in to see what sort of new adventure the Time Lord and his companions were going to get into this week. I will admit that I stopped watching the series during the run of Peter Capaldi. The idea of the Time Lord jamming on a guitar just seemed too campy and just downright stupid. If they were going to do something this foolish to a character that I had loved since childhood, I didn't have to watch them do it. When the BBC announced that the 13th Doctor would be a woman, I was somewhere between lukewarm and interested. The precedent had already been set with the Master and Missy, so that didn't bother me. I was curious to see what would come out of this new direction, so I tuned in. In the first two episodes, The Woman Who Fell to Earth and Ghost Monument, I held up any judgments. These episodes were essentially a two-parter dealing with the Doctor as she goes through regeneration psychosis, which, as old-time viewers can tell you, may be a rather traumatic experience.
Ta-da! Yuck. Where are we going?
Leicester 95.
Where's that?
You'll soon find out. It's a marvellous place for holiday, and you and I both need a rest. I would have taken you to the Eye of Orion, but the coordinates elude me at the moment. Perry?
Yes?
How do you come by a name like that?
It's the diminutive of my proper name, Perpigillium.
Indeed. One morn, a Perry at the gate of Eden stood, disconsolate. Who wrote that?
I haven't the faintest idea.
Of course you don't. You don't even know what a Peary is, do you, Perry?
No.
I'll tell you. A Peary is a good and beautiful fairy in Persian mythology. The interesting thing is, before it became good, it was evil. And that's what you are. Thoroughly evil.
Doctor, stop it!
No, not even a fairy, an alien spy. Sent here to spy on me. Well, we all know the fate of alien spies.
The third episode is where things start to slip for me, to the point where all I know about the episode is what I heard from reviewers, because I refuse to watch the episode itself. I dislike being lectured to about a grim and dark period of America's history by a bunch of know-nothing television producers in the UK who seem to think that every white person living in the Old South was an out-and-out racist. My views were echoed in the fan reviews for the episode.
This episode review isn't meant to argue the facts of this historical event. Rather, the focus is on how the event was portrayed in this episode of Doctor Who. It is replacing one form of bigotry with another form of bigotry. In the 1950s, pendulum was pretty much stuck to one side, but now in 2018, the pendulum has swung and gotten stuck on the other side. Since Chris Chibnall gave himself a co-writing credit on this episode, I'm assuming to feed his ego, my comments will be directed more at him than Marjorie Blackman, as I'm pretty sure most of this episode's heavy-handedness was his idea. He set the course for this disaster of a season. And frankly, the guy's a complete hack. This might be the most egregious example of extreme virtue signaling we've ever seen. The two whitest dudes on the face of the earth are here to lecture us about racism. From their point of view, I'm pretty sure they've decided that 99.9% of straight white men are the scum of the earth. But they and their elitist upper-class friends are different. They are superior to us normal folk, and they need to focus on telling us that we're scum. Now the big question. While this episode has many problems, which problem was the most serious? Which problem might result in losing a significant proportion of the Doctor Who fanbase forever? Well, you may remember that at the top of this review I said racism in any form is completely unacceptable. Well, let's take a look at the way white people, minus Graham, are handled in this episode. It's quite the understatement to say that there's some racist straw-manning going on here. Believe it or not, Doctor Who production team, not all white people in the southern US were violent and profane racists during this time period. Many actually spoke out against the treatment treatment of African Americans. Well, yes, this may have been centered in the northern states. This was also a thing in the South. For balance, why aren't any of them included in this episode? Why is every white person in this episode portrayed as the Antichrist? If you look at aspects of this episode as a comedy, it almost makes sense. Every white person in this episode is a complete douchebag. Let's take a look at this in order. 1 minute into the episode, we get introduced to the bus driver in 1943. Douchebag. Then, about 4 minutes in, we're introduced to douchebag number 2. And I'm not making this up, he literally punches Ryan in the head after he tries to return his wife's handkerchief. I mean, what the hell, Chibnall? Then we get introduced to future Artron Energy Guy, and he's a complete douchebag, but more on him later. We then get introduced to the next douchebag at the diner. We'll call this one Equal Opportunity Douchebag. And this one even drops a very bad word and then proceeds to kick them out. Subtlety, thy name is Chibnall. Next, we get introduced to Officer Douchebag. He comes off as delightful. By the way, that's sarcasm, NPCs. I need to clarify this because you people don't believe in humor. I mean, who needs Law and Order, right? I just love the fact that we were introduced to him with a foreboding shadow. He uses a not very nice word too. Several, actually. A bit later, we get to meet future douchebag again, and Whitaker gets to neuter him, and he tells us that this point in history is, quote, where things start to go wrong. Ooh, I wonder where this is going. It's a mystery. Then, near the end of the episode, we get introduced to old douchebags, or I guess we could call them retired douchebags. I think, at least for the upper-class Brits that were responsible for this episode, it must feel great to pick on Trump-supporting Southern Americans. Of course, we are talking about a time when Trump was a kid, but Southern Americans seem to be a favorite target for NPCs. NPCs have this really annoying sense of superiority, and they view what I guess they call Trumpland as something that is unworthy of licking the crap off their boots. Well, now they have an entire episode that shits on these people. I'm also pretty sure they are convinced that the Southern United States hasn't changed one bit since the 1950s.
Despite the obvious swipes made at President Donald Trump, I liked arachnids in the UK, except for the end, which was complete hogwash. Lock all the spiders into one room so that they all just die. And they get tricked into the room by blaring rap music. Well, if nothing else, that would be the first time that hip-hop was ever used for anything good. I stayed away from the complete CGI dumpster fire that was episode 5. Demons of the Punjab was pretty good, even if there were some problems with how the British writers handled their own history. And Kerblam was also a good story. I will admit that what I know about the last 3 episodes I only know from the reviewers. I tried watching parts of both The Witchfinders and It Takes You Away, but after seeing the campy way they treated King James, who was just outlandishly asking to be put in his place by a capable woman, read the Doctor, I pretty much got the sexism complaint that most of the reviewers have been complaining about for a good long time now. All this was led off by the new showrunner, a guy named Chris Chibnall, who stated right out of the box that he didn't simply want to hire a new doctor, but this new doctor would be a woman. It had to happen, even if there were other, more capable actors available. Chibnall was dead set on a female doctor. The person he selected was Jodie Whitaker, who worked with Chibnall on an apparently fairly successful series called Broadchurch. Whitaker was apparently Chibnall's first, last, and only candidate to play the Time Lord. The problem then became that the 11th series then picked up the SJWism where the 10th series left off.
Doctor Who has been woke for a while now. As I've pointed out in a previous video, it's been laced with feminist garbage and progressive gender ideology. This was significantly ramped up during the Peter Capaldi era. Just a quick recap for you.
Go. Now, go find Vikings on other planets. The universe is full of testosterone. Trust me, it's unbearable. We won't follow you.
The universe is full of testosterone. Trust me, it's unbearable. Now again, you might look at this in isolation and think, hey, it's just playful banter. Pretty mild and innocuous. Except, you will never hear a character say, the universe is full of estrogen. Trust me, it's unbearable.
Back to normal, am I? The only time I've been a man, that last body. Dear Lord, how do you cope with all that ego?
Back to normal, am I? I.e., meaning that being male isn't normal, apparently. Only time I've ever been a man, that last body. Dear Lord, how do you cope with all that ego? Again, I wouldn't have a problem if male characters could pass similar remarks about female ones, but they can't.
What's that face? Are you thinking? Stop it, you're a man, it looks weird.
Do as she says. Is the future gonna be all girl?
can only hope.
Now, much of the insults and barbs directed towards men and masculinity on the show I wouldn't have an issue with if it weren't for the fact that it's all one-way traffic. A male character could never make similar remarks directed towards femininity or a female character because there would be outrage if that happened. So where's the equality there? The previous companion, Bill Potts, had to continuously tell the audience how she's a lesbian over and over because that's PC.
Oh, my dear, I hope it doesn't offend you to know that I have had some experience of the fairer sex.
Me too.
Good Lord.
And as you might expect when cultural Marxism is being pushed in the show's writing, the show also has to take a dig at capitalism.
The end point of capitalism. A bottom line where human life has no value at all.
In the Christmas special Twice Upon a Time, the First Doctor is brought back, and the writers try to make him out to be a sexist, misogynistic dinosaur over and over.
Well, he clearly misses you. That ship of his is in dire need of a good spring clean.
No, stop. Look. Oh, look at the astral map here. Look at all the lovely blinking lights.
It's incredibly disrespectful to the original William Hartnell portrayal, and indeed to the legacy of the franchise.
Well, aren't all ladies made of glass? In a way.
Very good, sir, very good.
Are we now?
Absolute vandalization of a beloved TV icon. Don't get me wrong, I love David Bradley in this role. He's amazing as the First Doctor. He nails the performance in a way that's authentic and reminiscent of Hartnell's version, but unfortunately his character is being used in this political way, and that's just awful.
In fact, this whole place could do with a good dusting. Obviously, Polly isn't around anymore.
Please, stop saying things like that.
And as you can see in his reaction to all of this, the 12th Doctor has become a pathetic wimp, such a beta. He's terrified of the dangerous 1960s gender stereotypes of a housewife, of a woman cleaning a house. Shh! Don't let a 21st century woman hear you say something like that. They'll be deeply offended. I mean, how could such strong career women possibly cope with the 1960s version of Doctor Who being so inadvertently non-PC? They're actually implying that women are too brittle to hear this original Doctor speak in this way about women cleaning the TARDIS. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. It's the soft bigotry of low expectation.
A woman.
Set a woman to catch a woman.
Hold your tongue, lassie.
Even if I am just a woman.
Woman who...
What woman?
These are hard times for women. For not being drowned, we're being patronised to death.
Honestly, if I was still a bloke, I could get on with the job and not have to waste time defending myself.
Of course, as a woman, you don't get to have pockets for a while yet.
To silence foolish women who talk too much.
And in fact, with a female Doctor, the writers seemed to think that they were free to ram heaping loads of feminist-slanted bullshit down the throats of the viewers whether they liked it or not. Starting with Rosa and going all the way through the rest of the season, there are multiple instances of in-your-face feminism, cultural insensitivity, outright historical lying, or over-the-top racism being put in its place by a know-it-all brat of a Time Lord. And it gets worse. What I put up to the quirkiness of regeneration psychosis seems to continue throughout the season, which might be fine if this were explained in the episodes themselves. But it's not, and the reviewers are left to wonder in bafflement about the Time Lord, who pretty much generally settles down after 1 or 2 episodes, following a regeneration. In this case, however, it is all over the damn map, all the way through the season. Whether it was bad acting on the part of Jodie Whittaker or crappy show running on the part of Chris Chibnall, the result is the same, a mix of bad crap. Jodie Whittaker herself has been no help here. Despite the outrage from fans over the problems with the show, she has done several interviews where she makes it clear that she is blissfully uninformed about what is going on around her. Oh, it's just so great to be the Doctor after 53 years of old white men doing all of the cool things. And it's just so great to see the support of the fans, and being the Doctor is like being the President. It's a lifetime job. Jodie really needs to study the details of the job of the U.S. President. When she's not shoveling SJW bullshit at the fans, she is insulting to the companions and the former Doctor and crapping all over the series canon while doing so. With Doctors like Jodie, we don't need the Master, or Missy, or whatever he's going by these days. The writing has been terrible at times, and so has some of the special effects, and the general direction of the show to this point, with no appearances from classic Doctor Who villains, has made this a season to forget. And then recently has been the word that Chris Chibnall will be leaving the show after season 12. And Jodie Whittaker has said that if Chibs goes, she goes. Well, is that a promise or a threat? Actually, I think Chris Chibnall leaving might be the best thing that could happen to Doctor Who, and it could not happen soon enough. Okay, fine, give the team of Chibs and Jodie one more season. But once they are out the door, some serious changes will need to be made to save the show. First, the BBC will need to hire a showrunner and doctor who emphasizes the values of the show before 2005. This is not to say that the 9th to 11th Doctors were not good, but our aim is to broom all the SJWism, and there was hardly any of that before the 2005 release of the 9th Doctor. Hell, we had Billy being an out-and-out lesbian companion to the point that Doctor number 12 had to tell Doctor number 1 not to be so damn sexist. And with Doctor number 13, we have all manner of bigotry, sexism, and racism that is leveled against pretty much any culture or civilization that is not 21st century Earth, with our new feminist doctor being able to call out even more if the thought crosses her regenerated adult brain. Second, if the BBC and the showrunners want to do historical pieces, that can be a fine move. But do some damn research. There were factual historical problems with both Rosa and Demons of the Punjab, whereas The Fires of Pompeii from Series 4 and Vincent and the Doctor from Series 5 show what can happen if history is used even simply to accent the rest of the show. Third, bring the show itself back to its roots. Take the new villains and the old villains and give us some reason to care that they appear on our screen. Rather than when we see Candy Cane of the Daleks, we sit back and go, another Dalek episode. No, folks, we need to be like, wow, what are the Daleks up to this week? And the same should happen with each episode of the season. What is up with this villain this week? Otherwise known as, why should we care about this episode this week? The old villains have the appeal to the original fans, who know them from way back when. Newer villains are familiar to the newer fans and need time to grow and reach the older fans. But if you give us some TLC, that can happen, especially with villains like the Angels, the Silence, and even Tooth Boy from this season. I think that if the show changes direction, it can be saved, even though it might have to wait until after the 12th series. The head honchos at the BBC have to be taking a look at the real numbers. The drop from 10.9 million viewers in the UK for episode 1 to 6.65 million viewers for the episode at the end of the series, basically the series has dropped half of its viewers over the course of the season, meaning that all the BS being slung at us by Jodie in her interviews is either completely fake or she is completely clueless as to what is really happening as the show is being broadcast. The leaders at the BBC can't afford to be so blind, and I hope that they really want to keep the show going and will take the necessary steps to ensure that it does keep going, long after the dumpster fire that is the 13th Doctor and Chris Chibnall.
Shut up! Can't you just... morons! I'm surrounded by morons! Ah!